Hello and welcome to the Year 6 reading meeting. I'm really sorry we can't be meeting you in person right now. It's really nice to do these things face to face, but we still want to get across to you some of the books and the way we work in Year 6 and also some ideas about what you could be doing at home. So the way reading works in Year 6, the children will each have in school a reading record, and they'll have this from years 3, 4, 5 and 6 looking exactly the same. And inside, the children will note down the date of the reading, the pages they've been reading, so we've got an idea about the sorts of books that they're choosing, what they like, and actually what they're understanding. And in here we might see some of the children's comments about how they're finding the book, some questions about the characters, and also from time to time some book reviews as well. So it's a really useful log so we understand exactly what the children are up to. Now, during lessons, sometimes we'll be sharing a whole class novel. So in this first half term, we're getting the children really excited about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And I have to say, they've loved it so much and we've almost whizzed through the entire book. Now, we use a lot of the text to actually inform our writing. So we'll look at things that Rowling has used, so different techniques, and that may be grammatical, it may be the way she's used punctuation. So the children can start to emulate this in their own work, as well as really getting a bit of a passion and understanding about authors that they might not really be reading. I think sometimes we forget that this book is over 20 years old already. Some of the other things that we use are books in small groups. So, for some of our low ability readers, it's getting them excited about some of the picture books, because in our picture books, as well as still having writing, we get some amazing ways to really get the children looking at the text, but also looking for clues. So as they go through this book, they can sometimes see in King Kong the gorilla going as a theme through some of the pictures. And when they can start to think thematically about the way an author is using illustrations, it helps them to spot themes in the writing as well. Another great reason we use this book is because there are turns of phrase in here that we take for granted that children understand. We find it in some of our Derrick work when we refer to something being dog-eared, and just assuming that the children know that, or having experienced a jumble sale, if that's referred to in the book, and actually how many children have been to a jumble sale, and what do we call it these days? So actually finding turns of phrase really helps children to unlock language. For some of our more sophisticated readers, we then go into some harder texts. We've got some poetry here, like The Highwayman and also The Lady of Shalott, where they come across words which they wouldn't normally meet in everyday language and more modern books, and they get to try and use the context of the sentence to help them unpick brand new vocabulary. It's a good trick to use at home as well if you're reading with your child and they come across a word they don't understand. So sometimes you would read the sentence before the unknown word and then the sentence after. Does that help us understand what's missing? And sometimes we would take the word out that they don't know and replace it with something we think would fit. And if that works, then that helps us to work out the meaning of what the word could have been. Now, after Christmas, we also do something called Reading Gladiators. So for our greater depth readers, we then have a group who meet each week, and we have some amazing texts which come to us from a company called Just Imagine. And they have a number of activities to do on a book. So some books will go home, and these groups will be asked to read a chapter, come back, and it might be that they have to produce a piece of work based on what they've read. It might be that we have to film something that then goes back to Just Imagine. And there were some great competitions on a range of texts which the children get involved in. And in the past, the children have sometimes won some of these competitions, and then we've had author visits. We've had Polly Ho Yen in, who wrote The Boy in the Tower, and things like that, so that's great. Then in normal guided reading, we read a range of different texts. So it's not all just written words. Okay, we also use graphic novels. That's really good, especially for some of the boys who really get into this. And it's about using the page in a different way. It's not just about going left to right, but also looking for clues about where the story goes next. We've got some fantastic authors as well, because sometimes it is just nice for us to read with the children. Holes has been a particularly interesting text. The kids last year loved that, so we're definitely looking at using that again. But also introducing children to some local authors and seeing that actually writers can be right on your doorstep. So Marcus Sedgwick wrote a book called Floodland, and there are a lot of references to the local area in there. And it makes writing then a little bit more real for them. As well as doing some of the longer texts like Harry Potter, we will also intersperse that with some shorter text. This is a fantastic book called The Island by Armin Grieder, and there are some really kind of deep themes and images that go on in here about refugees, okay, about acceptance, and about strangers and the way we treat them. And the children come up with some brilliant questions based on that one, so that's really, really good. So, what would we like you to be doing with the children at home? Well, the important thing is that children are reading, whether it's 10 minutes a day, half an hour a day, and you'll be at different stages with your child, I know that myself. You'll have some children who will get home, they'll take a book up to the room and they will sit there and they will have the light on under the covers still way after bedtime. To those who you have to crowbar the PlayStation control out of their hand and you show them a book and their face drops in disappointment. And it is about trying to find something that really will engage them as well as you. Reading should not be a battle. Reading could be anything from any sort of text. It could be a recipe that is then cooked together on an evening. It could be reading a news article together on an iPhone, looking up some information on Wikipedia together. It doesn't just have to be out of a book. And there is still such value in you as an adult reading to your child. I know mine still crave a bedtime story even at their age, and it doesn't have to be long. And you don't have to do silly voices, but you can if you really want to, and the kids will love it. The other thing to do is to talk to them about your experiences with reading. What book are you reading at the moment? Actually, what is a good environment for them to read in? It's really bizarre when we ask the children, when are you happiest reading? Some of them love reading on the floor. And so I might walk past Mr. Lohman's classroom, there's a child sat under a table with a book, but that's their safe place. Some of them might like it in the bedroom. Some of them might need absolute silence in order to be able to concentrate. And some of them actually concentrate better with noise in the background, having music playing or a TV on, to have those conversations as well. Now, there are plenty of books that the children can bring home, and there are a whole range of ability levels. So for those who really struggle with their reading, or those who have dyslexic tendencies, we have a whole range of Barrington Stoke books as well, which we guide the children towards, and their pages come with coloured backgrounds, and they're age appropriate, but they are an easier read. There are many ways we can support the children. Now, we will be sending home an information sheet for all of Key Stage 2, and it outlines the different ways that we read with the children in school, and on the other side it has a whole list of questions. So if you want to interrogate your child about their reading, or just start a discussion with them on a particular theme, then there are plenty of questions which you can use for that. Now, the final thing I will mention is a person called Derek. And they may well talk about Derek at home and how they have Derek every day. Derek isn't a real person or the school dog or anything like that. Derek is a guided read we do as a whole class each day. And it stands for, the D is for decode. So each day the children will speed read one text, and it'll be the same text every day for a week. And the idea is they become really familiar with the words and the punctuation, and then each day they will get a little bit quicker, and they mark their time and how long it's taken them, and then each day they get a bit further. And this really helps to build confidence and stamina. Then the E of Derek stands for explain, and this is where we work on new vocabulary. This is where we look at different phrases that the children might not have heard before, and we look at unpicking the language and really understanding the meaning of particular words. Then we move on to R, and R is for retrieve. Now, for year 6, with the SATs coming up next year, it's a really, really big skill. Retrieval is about being able to skim and scan back through documents to find facts and information quickly. And about 60% of the marks on your SATs paper can be gained through retrieval alone. But it's also useful for children across the curriculum in their foundation subjects when they need to look through different documents, so whether it's source work for history, whether it's reading up on geographical areas. And it helps them to actually get rid of what's not useful to find out exactly what they do need in order to further their learning. Then we go on to I. Now, I is for interpret. Now, interpret questions are all about inference and deduction. So it's not necessarily about finding a fact, but it's using detective skills to be able to read between the lines. And actually, why does a character feel a particular way? What's their motivation for their actions? And what can we learn? And in the other video that I will put on about reading for the whole of Key Stage 2, there are some examples of what that looks like. Lastly, we have choice. Now, choice questions are all about why has the author chosen to do something in a particular way. It might be why they've chosen to use punctuation in a certain way, so lots of commas, semicolons, full stops. And it might be to make the reader out of breath in an action sequence. It might be to slow the reading down to show a character's thoughts. It might be the choice of how they've structured something on a page, especially in non-fiction texts. And it might just be about what the author wants you to know as a reader, about drawing you into the text. It might be about a direct address by starting with a question. So that's what we do on a day-by-day basis, breaking reading down for the children. Well, hopefully that's been useful, and hopefully once we get out of the lockdown as it is and you can get back into school, we'll be able to get into the library and look at more wonderful books. But for now, if you have any questions, please use the Year 6 email address, okay, or feel free to write in your child's reading record or to give us a shout on the telephone. Okay, thanks very much.